As Waymer walked across the graduation stage, her chair in the audience sat empty, not a single family member in sight. They called her education worthless, mocked her dreams, and told her she'd never be more than a village girl. But when the most powerful man in the nation stood up, calling her the future of this country, her family's faces turned pale, and that was just the beginning of the shock they would face that day. Waymer was a quiet, but very smart girl from a small town where people didn't believe much in big dreams. From the time she was young, she wanted to go to university and make something of her life. But it wasn't easy. Her own family didn't support her. Her aunt McKenna and cousin Fari were the worst. They always laughed at her and said, "A woman's place is in the kitchen, not in classrooms." They told her she was wasting her time and would end up with nothing. Every time Waymer tried to talk about her dreams, they shut her down and made her feel small. But Waymer didn't give up. Even when it felt like the whole world was against her, she kept going. She took up small jobs, cleaning, selling things on the street, and even working late at restaurants, just to pay her school fees. There were nights when she didn't sleep because after work, she still had to study for her exams. Sometimes she went to bed hungry because the little money she earned went straight to her books and tuition. Still, no matter how tired or broken she felt, Waymer held on to her dream of wearing that graduation gown. Every insult from her family only made her work harder. She promised herself that one day she would prove them wrong. Even when she cried alone at night, she wiped her tears and pushed forward. Deep down, she believed that her struggle would not be in vain. She knew that one day her hard work would shine, and the people who doubted her would have no choice but to see her worth. On the morning of her big day, Waymer woke up with her heart full of hope. Today was her graduation, the day she had worked so hard for. After all the years of struggle, she was finally going to wear that gown and walk across the stage. As she got ready, she decided to call home, still hoping that her family would be proud of her and come to see her shine. She dialed her mother's number, smiling, thinking maybe today they would finally see her worth. But the moment her mother answered, Waymer's smile slowly faded. Her mother didn't sound excited at all. In fact, she scoffed and said in a cold voice, "Why should we waste our time watching a useless ceremony? Does that graduation put food on the table? Number it means nothing to us." Waymer's heart sank. She stood there, holding the phone, feeling her chest tighten. She tried to explain how important this day was to her, how she wished they would be there, just this once. But her mother cut her off and said they had better things to do. Instead of coming to her graduation, her family had chosen to attend her cousin Fari's engagement party. They called that a real achievement, a woman getting married, finding a husband, not someone standing on a stage with a paper certificate. Her Aunt McKenna even said loudly in the background, "Let her enjoy her useless paper. Fari is becoming a wife today. That's what matters." Waymer's hands shook as she ended the call. She felt tears build up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. This was supposed to be her happiest day. But her own family had turned their backs on her again. They cared more about parties and traditions than about her dreams. As she stood there, all dressed up with no one from home coming to cheer her on, a deep pain filled her heart. But even in that pain, a small voice inside her whispered, "Go, Waymer, go and make this day count, even if you have to do it alone." Waymer stood in front of the mirror, dressed in her simple but clean graduation gown. It wasn't fancy, but it was neat, and it meant everything to her. She touched the edges of the gown softly, feeling a mix of pride and pain. Today was supposed to be her happiest day, but deep inside, her heart felt heavy. As she looked at her reflection, she could feel the loneliness wrapping around her like a cold blanket. No mother, no father, no family to cheer for her, just empty silence. But Waymer refused to let the tears fall. She blinked them back quickly and forced a small smile, even though it didn't reach her eyes. She remembered every cruel word her family had ever thrown at her. She remembered her Aunt McKenna laughing at, saying a woman's place is in the kitchen, not in books. She remembered her cousin Fari calling her a fool for dreaming so big. She remembered the night she cried herself to sleep after doors were slammed in her face when she asked for help. All those painful memories tried to break her spirit this morning. But Waymer took a deep breath and told herself, no, not today. Today, she would stand tall. Today, she would walk across that stage with her head held high. Even if no one from her family was watching, she would make this day count, for herself, for every tear she had shed, for every sleepless night she had endured. She promised herself silently that she would not let their rejection ruin her moment. As she gathered her things and stepped out, the sun hit her face, and she felt a small warmth in her chest. She didn't know it yet, but fate was already moving things in her favor. Bigger plans were waiting for her, plans that would shake her family's pride to the core. Today might have started with loneliness, but before the sun set, Wema's name would be on everyone's lips. She had no idea that this day, which felt so empty, was about to become the most powerful turning point of her life. And as she walked forward, one step at a time, her silent tears turned into quiet strength. She was ready, even if she had to do it alone. The graduation ceremony was big, bright, and full of proud families cheering loudly for their children. But Wema sat quietly among the students, her heart a little heavy because her family wasn't there. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall as they introduced the special guest for the day. Everyone turned their heads in excitement. It was Zane, the nation's youngest billionaire, known all over the country for his success and kindness. He wasn't just rich, he was loved because he used his money to help others. Cameras flashed as he walked in, dressed simply but confidently, and the whole hall buzzed with energy. When Zane stepped up to speak, the room went silent. He told a story that touched every heart in that place. He spoke about how he grew up poor, with nothing but a dream. He shared how people laughed at him, told him he would never make it, but he kept pushing forward. He said, "It's not where you start, but where you are determined to go." His words made some parents in the crowd wipe away tears, and students nodded, feeling hope rise inside them. Then Zane surprised everyone by saying he was looking for new, fresh talent, people who had struggled but never gave up, to join his global foundation and help change the world. The students whispered among themselves, wondering who would be lucky enough to catch his eye. Then came the moment when names of the top students were being called for awards. And when the announcer said, "Wayman Jerry, Award for Academic Excellence," Zane, who had been quietly watching, suddenly sat up straighter. His eyes followed Wema as she stood up, shy but proud, walking toward the stage. Something about her, her quiet strength, the way she carried herself, caught his attention deeply. Right there, in front of everyone, Zane leaned in and whispered to the host, asking if he could personally hand Wema her award. The crowd gasped when they heard the announcement. Zane, the great billionaire, wanted to meet this simple girl from a small town. As Wema walked across the stage, her heart pounded. She had no idea that her life was about to change forever. Zane smiled warmly at her and handed her the award, saying, "Young lady, you are the future of this country." The cameras flashed non-stop, capturing every second, and while Wema stood there, still shocked and holding her award tightly, the videos were already being shared online, spreading like wildfire. The world was starting to notice her, even if her own family didn't, and this was just the beginning. As Wema stood on that stage, still holding her award, Zane turned to the microphone with a big smile. His voice was loud and clear as he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, today I have met someone truly special. This young woman, Wema, is not just a top student. She is a fighter, a survivor. She reminds me of my own journey." The whole crowd clapped and cheered loudly. Then Zane said something that made everyone freeze for a second. He announced that he wanted Wema to join his global foundation, offering her a prestigious role that many people could only dream of. "We need people like Wema, people with courage and determination," he said. Cameras flashed, and the applause grew even louder. All around the hall, reporters started typing fast, and news channels went live, broadcasting the moment. Within just a few hours, videos and pictures of Wema standing next to Zane were everywhere. On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all the news channels, people started sharing her story, saying things like, "The girl who fought against all odds," and "Wema, from tears to triumph." Her name was suddenly on everyone's lips. Meanwhile, back at Fari's engagement party, her family was busy laughing, dancing, and showing off. They had no idea what was happening. But then, one by one, people at the party started looking at their phones and whispering. Videos of Wema's shining moment kept popping up. Someone turned the volume up, and everyone heard Zane's voice praising Wema in front of thousands. Her mother's smile slowly faded, and her Aunt Makina's face turned pale. Fari, who was the center of attention just minutes ago, watched as guests started focusing on the viral clips instead of her party. The mood shifted quickly. The celebration turned cold as they all sat there, shocked and speechless. Their plan to ignore Waymer and lift Fari up had backfired. Waymer, the girl they called useless, was now the pride of the nation, and they couldn't escape the shame, because the whole world was watching. As soon as Waymer's family saw her face all over the news, their shock quickly turned into fake excitement. Her mother, who had earlier called her graduation useless, suddenly started telling everyone at the party, "That's my daughter! That's my Waymer on TV!" Aunt McKenna, who used to say, "Women belong in the kitchen," grabbed her phone and began calling every distant relative and old neighbor, proudly saying, "Did you see our Waymer? She's made us proud." Fari, who was supposed to be the star of the day, forced a smile and joined in, pretending to be happy for Waymer. But deep inside, jealousy burned. Within minutes, the whole family decided they had to rush to the graduation venue. They quickly changed clothes, fixed their makeup, and jumped into cars. Along the way, they even planned how they would pose for pictures with Waymer and Zane, the famous billionaire. "We must take family photos and post them everywhere," McKenna said. "Let everyone know we supported her from the beginning." They laughed and dreamed about the attention they would get from the community. But when they arrived at the university, their smiles began to fade. They looked around, but Waymer was nowhere to be seen. They asked people, but no one knew where she had gone. That's when they heard the news that hit them hard. Waymer had been invited by Zane himself to attend a private lunch with important dignitaries and top business leaders. It was an exclusive event, and no outsiders were allowed. Her family stood there, helpless and embarrassed. Their plan to take pictures and show off had failed. People around them started whispering, knowing very well how they had treated Waymer in the past. The family, who had always looked down on her, now wanted to shine in her light. But Waymer was out of their reach. She was finally in a place where their cruel words and fake love couldn't touch her, and for the first time, they realized they couldn't control her story anymore. The world had already chosen Waymer as its new hero. When Waymer's family finally managed to find her later that evening, they rushed towards her with big fake smiles. Her mother opened her arms wide, trying to hug her tightly. "Our shining star!" she called out loudly, as if she had always believed in Waymer. Aunt McKenna clapped her hands, saying, "We always knew you would make us proud." Even Fari, who used to laugh at Waymer for studying too much, now tried to act sweet, saying, "Cousin, you've made history." But Waymer didn't move. She stood still, tall and calm, her eyes clear and strong. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the quiet girl who swallowed her pain. She looked at them one by one, and her voice, though soft, carried power. "Where was this love?" she asked. "When I called home this morning and you laughed at me? Where was this pride when you told me my dreams were useless and I should stay in the kitchen?" Her mother's smile faded. Aunt McKenna looked away, and Fari's face turned pale. But Waymer wasn't done. She continued, her words slicing through their fake affection. "All those years I worked odd jobs just to pay my school fees. You mocked me. You shut doors in my face. And now, because cameras are flashing and people are watching, you suddenly call me your star." Tears welled up in her mother's eyes, but Waymer stayed strong. "I am no longer the girl who needs your approval. I don't need love that only shows up when I succeed. I needed love when I was struggling, when I was tired and when I felt alone. But you weren't there." The family stood in silence, their heads lowered, unable to answer. Waymer took a deep breath and finished. "So today, I shine, not because of your praise, but because I believed in myself when no one else did." And with that, Waymer turned away, leaving them speechless, finally standing tall in her own light, free from their chains. After the ceremony, Waymer found herself sitting quietly in a room, her heart racing. She had just received her award from Zane, the youngest billionaire in the country, and now she was alone with him. He looked at her with kind eyes, his voice soft, yet filled with understanding. "Waymer," he said, "I see so much of myself in you." Waymer was confused. How could someone like Zane, a man with so much success and power, see anything like himself in a simple village girl? But Zane continued, "When I was younger, my family abandoned me too. They didn't believe in me. They thought I wouldn't amount to anything. But I knew my worth. I knew I could achieve more." His eyes seemed to look far off, as if reliving his past. It's the same fire that I see in you, Weema. That hunger to prove everyone wrong, to make something of yourself, despite the odds. Weema listened carefully, the words stirring something deep inside her. Zane wasn't just a successful businessman. He was someone who truly understood her struggle, her pain, and her dreams. He leaned forward, his gaze steady. I want to help you, he said. I see your potential. I see a future leader, someone who can inspire others. I want to mentor you, guide you in your career, and help fund an educational project in your village, something that will give girls like you the opportunities you never had. Weema's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just an opportunity for her personal success. It was a chance to give back, to help other girls like her escape the limitations of their circumstances. She had dreamed of making a difference in her village, and now it seemed like the impossible was finally possible. With a deep breath, Weema nodded. I accept. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about all the girls who need a chance to show what they can do. I want to make a real change. Zane smiled, his eyes shining with approval. That's exactly why I believe in you. Together, we'll make a difference. And with that, Weema felt like her future had changed forever. Not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been overlooked, just like her. Back in the village, word about Weema's success spread like wildfire. People couldn't stop talking about how she had been honored by the youngest billionaire in the country, while her cousin Fari's engagement seemed almost insignificant in comparison. The contrast was glaring, and it didn't take long for the community to start noticing. Whispers filled the air as everyone realized that Weema's family had been too proud to show up for her on her special day, choosing instead to celebrate Fari's engagement, something that now seemed petty and shallow. The family, once basking in their sense of superiority, now faced a harsh reality. Their fake celebrations were no longer something to be proud of. The community, who had once admired them for their social status, began to turn their backs. People started openly questioning why they had ignored Weema's achievements, why they hadn't supported her when she needed them the most. Some even went as far as to say that it was clear Weema had always been the one with real potential, but they had been too blinded by their own pride to see it. As Weema's name continued to dominate the headlines and social media, the truth about her family's neglect became more and more obvious. The sting of public judgment was something her family could no longer escape. They were now seen as the ones who had failed her, the ones who had chosen to ignore her dreams. The pressure built, and soon, even the people who had once praised them began to distance themselves. Weema, however, wasn't bothered. She knew exactly what her family was trying to do. They wanted to bask in her success, now that the world had recognized her, but she refused to be dragged into their drama. Instead, Weema kept her eyes focused on her bigger mission, to create opportunities for other girls like her, to inspire those who had been overlooked and dismissed. She was no longer interested in seeking validation from those who only cared about her when it was convenient for them. Weema had a purpose now, and it was bigger than anything her family could ever offer. Months passed, and Weema returned to her hometown, but this time, everything was different. She wasn't the quiet girl who had struggled in the shadows anymore. She was now a powerful force, a symbol of resilience and success. With Zane's foundation supporting her, Weema had built a girls' academy in the village, a place where young girls could dream big and pursue their education without the limitations she had faced. On the day of the grand opening, Weema stood proudly at the front, ready to cut the ribbon, marking the beginning of a new chapter for her and for the community. As she did, the crowd erupted in cheers. Children, who once would have been silenced by poverty and limited opportunities, chanted her name, celebrating the chance for a brighter future. The media cameras flashed, broadcasting her story across the nation. People were captivated by how far she had come, how her determination had not only changed her life, but was now transforming the lives of so many others. Weema had become a living proof that hard work and perseverance could break even the most unshakable barriers. Meanwhile, her family stood in the distance, watching from the crowd. They could see the life she had built for herself, the respect she had earned, but they were powerless to reach her. They tried to move closer, eager to reconnect now that she had made it. But Weema was no longer the girl they had rejected. She had built a new world, one with people who truly valued her, people who saw her potential before the fame. Weema looked out at the crowd, her heart full, and knew that this was more than just an opening ceremony. It was a moment of triumph, a declaration that even when family turns its back, destiny will never abandon you. Standing there, surrounded by the children who would now have a future because of her, Wema realized that her journey had only just begun. She had broken free, not just for herself, but for every girl who had been told she wasn't enough. This was her new chapter, and it was just the beginning.